Hello and welcome to the third edition of the Handcycling Elf's Guide to Wirral. Today we're going to be going from Birkenhead North train station to Conway Park station in the centre of Birkenhead, along what I personally think is one of the safest and quietest cycleways on the whole of the Wirral. Some of it is cycleway, some of it is quietway. It's absolutely fantastic. Here we are coming out of Birkenhead North station. We're going to turn right onto Ilchester Road here. Now, a couple of people have asked me what the beeps are for when the beeps come on. And beeps are because I've got indicators on my helmet that allow me to tell cars and other road users whether I'm turning left or right. Before I turn, I press the button to indicate, and then I press the button to turn the indicator off. As you can see on the right hand side here, there's a new housing estate, and then on the left hand side is the old traditional kind of post-war social housing as well. Going up Ilchester Road, there's a little bit of a hill. We're coming up now to St James's Church. But also, in their glory, the urban planners of Merseyside decided to make this into one of Birkenhead's most majestic roundabouts. So this is actually kind of a church, but also kind of a roundabout as well. When you come up to this road, it's got a very small cycle lane for a very limited period of time, but it does the job. We're going to take a left on this roundabout onto Corporation Road. It's a really quiet road to go down. It's really, really good. Just going to go down here. Now, this is what I would call a quiet way. It tends to be a really quiet road. Mostly a residential road, or sometimes people doing deliveries to other bits of Birkenhead. But it's quite a quiet road, actually. It's quite nice to cycle on. It's quite wide as well. Again, I can never really stress enough just how much I love this quiet way, particularly on Corporation Road, because there's hardly ever that many cars on it. It's primarily a residential area, so for cars and car users, there are speed restrictions that are in place. And that makes it really, really safe, particularly to go down for children, families, and also non-standard cycle users. Now, this is a mix of kind of former industrial area, post-war social housing, and then also on the right-hand side here, there's a new development that's gone on in the last couple of years. It's good to see a good mix of housing and other uses in this area. It's nice and downhill, particularly when you get to this point here. It's nice and downhill, so you can build up a bit of pace. So we're coming to the end of Corporation Road here now. This is a very weird, I don't know, I think this was the first era of cycle lane that was really developed in Birkenhead, because it's very small, it's very short, and it doesn't really do anything. But nonetheless, we're turning right, and then we are going to turn right again. We're turning right onto Patton Street now, which is quite a nice and quite wide street to be able to cycle on. There's a bit of a mini cycleway here over to the right hand side, and ideally, theoretically, it will connect you up to the housing estate and you'll be able to get through to get onto the bit of Corporation Road or cycle to this point here. But the problem with it is that there's a chicane at the end, and it's a really narrow chicane and impossible to get through on an unstandard cycle like mine. Take it from me, because I've got stuck there. I think over to the right here there used to be a kind of factory or something, but it just seems to be going derelict. I'm not sure about that. Maybe people can help me out with that one. Coming up to the turn onto Brassy Street here now. This fella, whose street's named after Brassy, he was a railway manufacturer and he had a railway factory in Birkenhead just off Beaufort Road, which I'll show you on another cycle one day. Consequently, he's got a street named after him here in Birkenhead, Brassy Street. This area used to be quite a lot of Victorian housing and or industrial area, but in recent years they've started building smart new housing estates like this one on the right hand side. On the left-hand side is the Birkenhead Venture Boxing Club, and then on the right-hand side you've got building bridges and dance studios, which I think are kind of community organisations. And then as we cross this road here, we're crossing onto Beckwith Street, onto the Beckwith Street cycleway. We're going to come onto Beckwith Street here now. On Beckwith Street, we're going to go into a protected cycleway, which I think was built in the 1980s. It's a really strange bit of infrastructure in that it's there and people don't really know about it, but actually I find it really, really good, and it's really helps me to be able to get into Birkenhead from the north bit of Birkenhead. The only problem I've got with it is there's a little bit here which I think is really dangerous, particularly when I'm on my hand cycle. Really dangerous for me because it's not a straight off, because it's an off at an angle and you don't have the space to make the turn. Sometimes it can be a really, you have to slow down, but then you have to kind of turn your front wheels so you're okay with getting off, but then turn your back wheels and make your back wheels level, but you've not really got the space to do that. So your wheels can go a bit rickety and it becomes a bit dangerous really. And then coming along here now to Duke Street, which is kind of one of Birkenhead's main streets. You've got Birkenhead Park train station on the right here as we're crossing the road, and then on the left you've got some new housing which has been developed. Again, this cycle lane here going down Beckwith Street, given that it was built 25 to 30 years ago, for me is just a thing of beauty. The way it separates pedestrians, separates cyclists and separates them from cars, all whilst providing a little bit of green space as well. It's just really nice to cycle along. It may be several decades old, but actually cycling along it, and from a cyclist safety and pedestrian safety perspective, it's probably, in my opinion, equally as good, if not better, than some of the cycling infrastructure we're putting in at the moment across England. You might ask me what is so good about this particular cycle lane. Well, for starters, there's a clear contrast. You can tell what's cycle lane and what is pedestrian bit, but also there's like a drainage bit, so pedestrians aren't going to come into conflict with cyclists, and cyclists aren't going to come into conflict with pedestrians because they're quite nicely segregated. But then also it's safe from the road, and when you're coming up to these junctions, there's actually signage that tells car users to be aware that there's a cycleway there, and that car users should slow down and look before turning. Because not many people know it's there, it's a cycleway, not many people tend to use it. So local residents tend to not see people using it, and sometimes think, right enough, that it's kind of a parking area. So sometimes as you're cycling along, you do have to dodge local residents' cars and one thing and another. The first day we went out cycling in Birkenhead, my dad actually took me on this route, and I thought, this is a good route, but then I ignored it for about 5 months, thinking I'd rather use the on-road route. And then when I rediscovered this route and using this route independently, I now just use it as much as I can because it's relatively quick, it's safe, it's nicely segregated. It's just a really, really great way to be able to get into town. The only thing I maybe would like to see on this route are some of the crossing bits being levelled out and being squared off. At the moment, some of them are at slightly awkward angles for getting up and down if you're on a non-standard cycle or a scooter or wheelchair. You wouldn't know it, but this bit actually marks the end of Beckwith Street proper. We're now going on to this bit here called Dover Close. It's a bit of an awkward bollard here, which you can just about get past on a hand cycle. You're going on Dover Close, you've got Cathcart Street Primary School on the left here. And then crossing over here, this little awkward road. Crossing over here onto Beckwith Street East. So on the right hand side here, we've got what used to be St Lawrence's Primary School, but what is now a centre called Tomorrow's Women, which is a women's support centre. Again, this is a nice, quiet, big road. It's just really great to cycle along. And then as we come to this bit here on the right-hand side again, it's what used to be St Lawrence's Infant School, which is now called Wirral Change, which is a refugee support centre and kind of education site. So there's like Arabic classes, and it's actually where I go on a Friday afternoon for my Irish language classes with the Liverpool Conway Park. We are going to turn left here onto by Europa Pools. It's a really kind of varied swimming baths. There's a kids pool, there's an actual pool, and then there's a competition pool as well. Ordinarily, I would go on Conway Street because that's the road and that's the fastest route to do it. But I actually wanted to show how you could use quietways and how you could use ways where there weren't cars to get about town. This takes us by the front of the View Cinemas, which used to be Warner Brothers Cinemas back in the day. And then takes us along this pathway here, along to Europa Boulevard, which connects us up to Conway Park Station, which is a very modern station, which has been opened since, I want to say, late 1990s. this is Conway Park Station, and this is where today's cycle finishes. Thank you very much for joining me along the Birkenhead North to Conway Park quietway, and I look forward to having a cycling adventure with you again soon. Take care now. Bye bye.